In medieval times, wealthy families would send their unwanted daughters to nunneries as a way to protect family wealth from being divided through dowries. These families would make large donations to the nunneries in exchange for accepting the girls. This resulted in young girls being placed in convents against their wishes. The Catholic Church's insistence on celibacy was unnatural. Many young women didn't want to be in monasteries, let alone to be abstinent. Nunneries were often located near towns and villages, giving nuns plenty of chances to observe people engaging in sexual activities. Naturally, they wondered why they shouldn't try it too. Taking monastic vows in the Middle Ages meant giving up sexual relationships, but the reality often didn't match the ideal of chastity. Medieval chronicles are full of deviant nuns who, driven by lust, did things unimaginable at the time. Sacred desires, unveiling the forbidden love of lesbian nuns. Nuns, like other women, were also expected to adhere to certain rules. Their vow of chastity aimed to keep them focused on their spiritual duties, away from worldly temptations. Similar commitments were expected from married women in their vows of fidelity, although the outcomes varied. For nuns, avoiding romantic entanglements proved more challenging. They typically joined religious orders at a young age, making a lifelong commitment to God. While dedicating yourself to a higher purpose at 12 might seem like a game, it could feel different by the time you reached 22. Now, imagine waking up in a convent one day with a sudden desire for romantic involvement. What options would you have? If you were attracted to women, some nuns chose to explore relationships within the convent, leading to heartfelt or even passionate letters between them. One example of such an affair was Sister Benedetta Carlini, who was an Italian nun renowned for her visions and stigmata, wounds resembling those of Christ. She asserted having intimate visions of Jesus Christ and even claimed that Jesus proposed to her. The church authorities consistently probed into her assertions. In the course of one investigation, a nun named Bartolomea from Benedetta's monastery revealed a startling secret. Bartolomea confessed to engaging in a sexual relationship with Sister Benedetta, who was the abbess at the time and therefore Bartolomea's superior. For a minimum of 2 years, they were involved in intimate acts, with Benedetta taking an active role. They practiced frottage for up to 3 hours during each encounter, happening at least 3 times per week. Sister Benedetta vehemently denied any memory of such a relationship. Instead, she claimed to be possessed by a demon that coerced her into engaging in these acts with Bartolomea. The church's investigators were bewildered, as they had never encountered such relationships among women, especially between nuns. The investigators concluded that Benedetta's transgressions were the result of diabolical influence and imprisoned her in solitary confinement for the remaining 35 years of her life. Veiled Temptations, the secret affairs of nuns. If your affections lean towards men, and you couldn't find romantic interest among your fellow sisters, you might resort to more unconventional methods. Some nuns treated their convents like regular apartments, leaving for romantic encounters and returning afterward. This practice was common enough to be criticized by reform preachers, with anecdotes suggesting nuns in 14th century Prague engaging in intimate activities with men. Nuns often went to great lengths to pursue romance. In the 14th century church records, there's a story reminiscent of Monty Python involving Sister Joan of Leeds, a Benedictine nun in an English monastery. Wanting to break free from the celibate and dull monastery life to enjoy romantic pleasures, Joan came up with a clever plan. She faked her own death, using a dummy that looked like her. Then she left the monastery to be with a lover. Unfortunately, her scheme was uncovered, and the bishop and villagers who had been sheltering her were pressured to send her back to the monastery. What ultimately happened to Sister Joan remains a mystery, as the chronicle doesn't provide any more details about her fate. The church's chronicles usually contain evidence of individual transgressions committed by their members. However, with the nuns of Littlemore Priory in England, it was the entire monastery that broke their vows of chastity. At the beginning of the 16th century, Littlemore Priory was a small monastery with 6 nuns residing there. Yet, Each nun broke her vows of chastity. It was widely known at the time that the nuns slept in common beds rather than separate ones. The Benedictine priory at Littlemore was founded in the 12th century by Robert de Sandford in the latter years of the reign of King Stephen. In the early days of Henry III, the priory received several benefits of the royal favour. The priory was paid handsomely by the king for its maintenance, however. Strangely, from 1291 onwards, it lost its royal patronage as it gradually sunk into poverty. On the 17th of June, 1517, Littlemore Priory was visited by Dr. Edmund Horde, a commissary of Bishop William Atwater of Lincoln, accompanied by the Episcopal Chancellor Richard Roston. While what triggered the impromptu visit is unknown, but what they saw happening at the nunnery under its prioress Catherine Wells scandalized them to the bones. The prioress herself was a bad egg to begin with. She herself had an illegitimate daughter and was still visited by the father of the child, Richard Hughes, a priest in Kent with whom she drank and romped occasionally within the nunnery. She was heavily appropriating the nunnery's meagre funds and had pawned all the nunnery's ornaments to support her extravagant lifestyle. She was brutal in punishments, and any nun opposing her would be banished to a closed room without food and drink for several days. As the nuns complained against the prioress, accusations and counter-accusations started to fly, with Catherine blaming the other nuns of immoral behavior themselves. The prioress complained that one of the nuns played and romped with boys in the cloister and refused to be corrected. When she punished her, the other nuns broke the punishment room and rescued her. Some nuns even remained out for 2-3 weeks at a stretch to have fun with the men in the neighborhood. Things were as scandalous as ever, as the bishop's team were at a loss to understand what to believe and what not to. The priory was in any case in a bad shape, with leaking roofs, an increasingly worsening reputation, and an embarrassing scandal threatening to blow up the carefully cultivated image of the English Church. Seduction and deceit at Sant'Ambrogio, unveiling the secrets of a controversial convent. In the 15th century, a friar claimed that Venetian nunneries were more like brothels than religious convents. According to church records, there were 33 nunneries in Venice, with the Benedictine convent of Sant'Angelo di Contorta being the most infamous. Nuns from influential families were involved in numerous sex-related cases between 1401 and 1487. Despite 52 prosecutions for sexual crimes, the actual misconduct within the nunnery was likely much more widespread. Court reports detailed sexual encounters during outings and in the convent cells, along with instances of illegitimate births, jealousy, and even involvement of abbesses. The scandal led to the closure of Sant'Angelo by the Pope, though other less notorious nunneries were allowed to continue their discreet activities. This nunnery, however, was nowhere close to the scandalous sant'ambrogio convent, which was even protected by the Pope. In the 1850s, the founder of Sant'Ambrogio Convent, Firao, lost her abbess title for urging fellow nuns to treat her like a false idol. Mistress of Novices Maria Luisa took over, continuing the questionable practices. One nun revealed, "She asked me to lie in a certain position with my legs raised while she entwined herself with me. She then made movements and a sound that's hard to describe. She wanted me to position myself to receive the fluids, claiming they could heal illnesses." Maria Luisa insisted on sexual contact as part of initiation rituals. During the Inquisition trial, Maria Luisa was accused of participating in lesbian encounters, venerating a false saint, and murder. But one crime in particular stood out during her trial. According to witnesses, Maria Luisa had engaged in what was termed a Jesuit blessing, but was actually an erotic ceremony. The secret blessing, passed down from the convent's founder Maria Agnès Firao, consisted of French kissing, among other things. One witness said that the male confessor made the sign of the cross on her throat with his tongue. Sometimes he put his tongue and kissed her on the heart. While receiving the blessing, nuns sometimes fell into a state of ecstasy on their knees before the confessor. The convent's founder, Maria Agnès Firao, faced multiple scandals in the early 19th century. Despite her role as a spiritual advisor to Pope Leo XIV, Ferrau found herself in trouble when her wrongdoings were exposed. Not only did Ferrau have an affair with her confessor, but she also participated in a three-way affair involving her confessor and another nun. She falsely claimed miracles and underwent 2 abortions after getting pregnant by clerical officials. Surprisingly, in 1816, despite being stripped of her abbess title, Ferrau's convent avoided closure by the Inquisition. The questionable activities persisted within the convent's walls. Mistress of Novices Maria Luisa wasn't limited to relationships with other nuns. She was also involved with one of the Jesuit confessors from the convent. To cloak their nighttime rendezvous, they explained it as a form of religious communion. In a clever ploy, Maria Luisa deceived the confessor into joining her using forged letters supposedly from the Virgin Mary. She enlisted novice Maria Francesca, admired for her beautiful handwriting, to craft these faux divine messages. Before long, the entire convent, including the unsuspecting confessor, obediently followed these holy orders, leading to his involvement with Maria Luisa. One of the confessors at Sant'Ambrogio had a hidden identity. He was actually Joseph Kleutgen, an advisor to the Pope and a prominent theologian. In 1848, Kleutgen engaged in a romantic relationship with a nun, and during the Inquisition trial, he admitted to having several physical encounters with Maria Luisa. Attempting to justify himself, Kleutgen argued that their affair was purely spiritual, not driven by desire but by religious reasons. Despite his confession, Kleutgen faced relatively mild consequences. The Inquisition ordered him to stay in a Jesuit house for 2 years and removed him from any role in hearing confessions. Maria Luisa brought unconventional customs to new nuns, including initiation rites of a sexual nature. She claimed that her bodily fluids held divine blessings, which could be shared during moments of climax. During the trial, Maria Luisa acknowledged that the order's saintly founder, Ferrau, had employed similar methods to pass on her miraculous liquor to Maria Luisa and previous novices. Novices were encouraged to spend nights in Maria Luisa's cell. Those who voiced concerns about the rituals mysteriously fell ill and sadly passed away. Princess Katharina von Hohenzollern-Sigmaringen, widowed twice by the age of 36, chose to leave her native Germany and join the convent of Sant'Ambrogio in Rome as a nun. However, she soon became uneasy as she uncovered questionable conduct within the convent, making her fear for her safety. The princess managed to send out a mysterious letter with the plea, "Save me." Fearing the abbess Maria Luisa's illicit and manipulative actions, Katharina believed that she was at risk of being slowly harmed by Maria Luisa. Claiming divine instructions, Maria Luisa asserted that she had been told to end Katharina's life. Despite numerous attempts, none were successful. Princess Katharina managed to flee the convent with the assistance of her cousin. Severely ill and rejecting all sustenance and medication, she was taken to her family's French estate to recuperate. Maria Luisa later admitted to making the princess ingest opium, mercury, and powdered glass. Despite the Inquisition trial, the secrets of Sant'Ambrogio remained hidden from the public eye. Pope Pius IX was likely concerned about potential repercussions if the Church acknowledged tales of nuns engaging in illicit activities and murder plots. The convent was discreetly shut down permanently, and Maria Luisa received a 20-year sentence of monastic confinement. Maria Luisa shared an explicit letter with the convent's newest member, the twice-widowed German Princess Katharina. When the princess reacted with shock, Maria Luisa decided to silence the critic permanently. To justify her actions, Maria Luisa used forged letters from the Virgin Mary. Pope Pius IX intervened upon learning of Princess Katharina's accusations, but he played a role in concealing the entire scandal. Fearing the potential damage to the reputations of his allies due to the affair unfolding in a convent near the Vatican, Pius IX opted against a public trial and instead referred the case to the Holy Office of the Roman Inquisition. Princess Katharina, unable to find the spiritual solace she sought in Rome, returned to Germany and generously supported a local monastery named Beuron with her wealth. As the trial brought to light details of lesbian encounters and attempted murder, the Inquisition swiftly moved to bury the entire scandal. The convent was closed, the abbess received a 20-year confinement sentence, and the implicated men were each given 2 years in prison. For decades, the Catholic Church hid the scandal at Sant'ambrogio. The Inquisition records were buried in a secret archive, which was not open to the public. All this changed, however, when scholars gained access to the materials and uncovered Maria Luisa's scandalous behavior. In addition to confessions of sexual misconduct and attempted murder, the nuns of Sant'ambrogio also faced consequences for their belief in a false saint. Despite being labeled a false saint by the Roman Inquisition, Maria Agnese Firao, the founder of Sant'ambrogio, was venerated within the convent.